Have you ever felt like life is just getting a bit too much? Too much stuff, too many worries, too many goals, to the point where sometimes we just feel lost and utterly exhausted. Have you ever wondered if there's a smarter, lighter way to live? A way that still helps us achieve what truly matters? If you're nodding along, then today's video is absolutely for you. Today, we're going to open up some truly special pages, not just from one book, but through them. A doorway into the life of one of the 21st century's greatest legends, Steve Jobs. And through his story, we're going to uncover a secret that many of us might never have considered. Truly brilliant people often choose a minimalist lifestyle, and they do it early on. The book we'll be diving into and reflecting on today might not have that exact title on your shelf, but the essence we're about to explore revolves around the classic biography, Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson, along with deep insights into how he, consciously or unconsciously, pursued a life philosophy worth learning from. We won't just be looking at his incredible technological achievements, but we'll also dig deep into how he thought, how he made choices, and how he organized his life. So why do we even need to read about, to understand the lives of great figures, famous people, or geniuses like Steve Jobs? Is there something behind the spotlight that we can actually apply to our everyday lives? Let's embark on this fascinating journey together. Would you agree with me that every biography is like a treasure map? It doesn't just recount past events. It reveals pathways of thought, pivotal decisions, painful failures, and glorious victories. When we read about someone's life, especially those who've made a significant impact, it's like being invited into a very special classroom. And in that classroom, the teacher is their life. We learn about their sharp intellect, the way they viewed problems and found solutions. Have you ever read about a historical figure's tough decision and asked yourself, what would I do if that were me? That's precisely when we're training our own critical thinking and decision-making skills. Not only that, but stories of incredible perseverance, of how they faced adversity, overcame difficulties and challenges, act like a potent spiritual tonic. There are times when we feel tired and want to give up. But then we read a chapter about a great person's persistence, and it's like a fire reignited within us, isn't it? That's the power of empathy and endless inspiration. And another incredibly important thing, my friends, is that biographies don't just paint rosy pictures. Authentic books also show us their flaws, their mistakes, the detours they took. And that's our chance to learn, to draw lessons, to make our own paths a little less rocky with unnecessary stumbles. As someone once said, smart people learn from their own mistakes, but wise people learn from the mistakes of others. Reading biographies also helps us broaden our horizons and see beyond our own personal limits. We get to see the bigger picture, more macro-level issues, and understand that every individual, no matter how small, can create ripples that spread far and wide. So, BookSmart Insights always prioritizes valuable biographies. And today, through the lens of Steve Jobs' life, we're going to explore a life philosophy that seems simple, yet is incredibly powerful. Minimalism. When we think of Steve Jobs, the first image that probably springs to mind is that of a brilliant innovator. A visionary who changed the world of technology with revolutionary products like the iPhone, iPad, and MacBook. A genius, perhaps a bit eccentric, and maybe a life of luxury and complexity befitting his immense fortune. In 2011, the world was stunned by his passing due to a serious illness. And after that, the biography Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson, former editor of Time magazine, the only official biography authorized by Steve Jobs himself, was released. It quickly became a global phenomenon, translated into dozens of languages and selling millions of copies. On book forums like Goodreads and reputable review sites, readers endlessly praised its honesty, detail, and the profound lessons it offered. Many shared that the book completely changed their perception of Steve Jobs. Before this book was widely published, Jobs was like an enigmatic icon in the public eye. But as the curtain was pulled back, as the pages unfolded his life story, from his childhood, the difficult early days of his startup, his successes, failures, complex relationships, to his final days, an interesting truth gradually emerged. That genius, the man behind sophisticated and complex tech products, chose an incredibly simple personal life. Does that surprise you? A man who could afford anything in the world found value in reduction. There's a saying that Steve Jobs adopted as his guiding principle when designing Apple products, a saying that became the core philosophy of the brand. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And it seems he didn't just apply this to his work, to iPhones with a single home button or incredibly intuitive interfaces, but he also brought it into his own life. Perhaps he realized early on that a simpler life is in fact a life of higher quality. So, how was minimalism expressed in Steve Jobs' life? Let's peel back the layers together, aspect by aspect. An author once said something very poignant. If a person places too much importance on material enjoyment, he will pay the price with his spirit. Do you feel this rings true in our society today? In the hustle and bustle of modern life, we, consciously or unconsciously, are constantly chasing material desires. A bigger house, a fancier car, designer clothes, the latest phone. We work ourselves to the bone, sometimes sacrificing our health and family time, just to own more and more. But then, it's often only when we're exhausted, drowning in worries, or even suffering that we have that shocking realization. We're holding on to too many useless things. Things that don't actually bring happiness, but only add burden and emptiness. It's at this point that we need to learn to let go, to learn to simplify our material wants so we can move forward lightly, rediscovering peace and true joy. And Steve Jobs, a billionaire, is a vivid example of this philosophy. In his biography, Walter Isaacson recounts a very interesting story. It was when Bill Gates and his wife visited Steve Jobs and his wife. Before stepping inside, Bill Gates, who at the time was building a colossal 66,000 square foot mansion, glanced at Jobs' house with unconcealed amazement. He asked, "You all live here?" Jobs' family home at that time, was just an ordinary house, made of red brick with a roof of small round tiles. It looked nothing like the mansion of a top tech CEO. It was no different from the modest homes we might see anywhere. This shows that Jobs wasn't obsessed with owning million-dollar yachts, magnificent villas, or decking himself out in expensive designer clothes to prove his status. In fact, someone even compiled statistics and noticed something interesting. From 1998 to 2010, for over a decade, at Apple's major product announcements, Steve Jobs' familiar attire was always a black Issey Miyake turtleneck, Levi's 501 blue jeans, and New Balance sneakers, an unchanging uniform. Why was that? Did he not have the money to shop? Certainly not. Did he lack aesthetic taste? That's even more wrong, as he was the one who shaped the sophisticated beauty of Apple products. The answer lies in the fact that he pursued minimalism throughout his life, naturally and consistently. He understood that a person's value doesn't lie in what he owns, but in what he creates and contributes. Less is more. This classic saying by architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe seems to have deeply permeated Jobs' thinking. The fewer material desires a person has, the greater their focus on other important things, and the richer their life experiences will be. By reducing the trivial choices about his outfit each morning, he had more energy for bigger decisions. By shunning ostentatious luxuries, he had more space for creativity and meaningful connections. Steve Jobs' story reminds me of another figure, someone who also found liberation in a minimalist lifestyle. Joshua Fields Millburn, one of the two founders of the Minimalists, a very famous minimalist movement. In a TED Talk that touched millions, Joshua shared his life story. He was once a successful man by societal standards, holding a senior management position in a large corporation, owning up to 150 stores while still very young. He could freely buy luxury cars, villas, or any extremely expensive product he wanted. He had everything people dream of. But you know what? Deep down, he felt empty and unhappy. The endless pursuit of material possessions had exhausted him. He worked day and night, so much so that when his mother passed away, he was busy making money. When his children needed their father by their side as they grew, he was always absent. The shock of losing his mother and a broken marriage forced Joshua to stop and ask himself, "What am I doing all this for? What are the truly important things in my life?" And then he made a life-altering decision. He quit his high-paying job, downsized his assets by 75%, and decluttered, getting rid of 90% of the unnecessary things in his house. From thousands of items, he kept only 288 that were truly essential and brought value to his life. And something magical happened. He realized that when he let go of unnecessary things, his life didn't lose anything. On the contrary, it became simpler, lighter, and much more meaningful. He had enough time and energy to do what he truly loved, to write, to pursue his passions, and most importantly, to connect more deeply with his loved ones. As Joshua said, we discard 90% of the unimportant in our lives, and the remaining 10% will give us more. This statement is truly an aha moment, isn't it? It also resonates with another profound philosophy. By discarding the tangible, we can change the intangible world. When we have the courage to give up those boundless material desires, to declutter not just our living spaces, but also our mental spaces, we can achieve a much freer and richer life. Material minimalism, in essence, is how we create a new life for ourselves, filled with more complete and meaningful values. It's not about living ascetically, but about living intentionally, focusing on what truly brings joy and growth. Marie Kondo, the world-renowned Japanese organizing consultant, also has a similar philosophy when she advises us to keep only those items that spark joy. It's not just about tidying up our homes, it's a dialogue with ourselves about what's truly important. So what about you? Is there anything in your home that you know you don't really need, but still keep because you feel bad throwing it out, or maybe I'll use it someday? Perhaps it's time to take a look and ask ourselves, is holding on to these things taking up our space, time, and energy? It wasn't just in his personal life. Steve Jobs thoroughly applied the philosophy of minimalism to his work at Apple. And this was one of the key factors behind his greatness and that of this tech empire. There's a very dramatic story in the biography that marks Jobs' spectacular comeback. It was in 1983, due to deep disagreements over views and business philosophy with the board of directors, especially with then CEO John Sculley, that Jobs was pushed out of the very company he co-founded. He left Apple with bitterness and despair, then went on to build Next Computer and the animation studio Pixar. Meanwhile, after Jobs had left, Apple began a period of rapid decline. They fumbled with too many product lines, losing focus and strategic vision. By 1997, the situation was dire. Apple had lost a staggering $1.04 billion and was on the brink of bankruptcy. The stock plummeted and employee morale hit rock bottom. To save the sinking ship, the board had no choice but to, somewhat embarrassingly, swallow their pride and invite Steve Jobs back. And when he returned as interim CEO, do you know what the first thing he did was? It wasn't to immediately launch a new product, nor was it a series of flashy marketing campaigns. The first thing, and also one of the boldest and most controversial decisions at the time, was that he ruthlessly cut 70% of Apple's projects and product lines. From dozens, even hundreds of sprawling projects, he kept only a few core products that he believed had real potential. This decision met with fierce opposition from many members of the leadership. They argued that such drastic cuts would weaken the company and lead to lost revenue. But Jobs, with the vision and decisiveness of a genius, steadfastly defended his choice. He understood that Apple couldn't do everything well. They needed to focus their resources on what they could do best, on what they could be excellent at. And the results proved everything. Immediately after Jobs pruned away these cumbersome, non-essential branches, Apple was like a phoenix rising from the ashes. The old tree that seemed withered suddenly sprouted new life. The company's stock price soared by 33%, and its market value increased by $830 million in a short period. Focus brought strength. Greg McKeown, in his book Essentialism, also emphasizes this. If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. Steve Jobs prioritized for Apple. He chose what was essential. For Apple, Jobs always pursued simplicity to its utmost. From the company's management structure and work processes to product design and advertising campaigns, he had a famous internal saying, "Everything needs to be made from simplicity." And the advertising slogan, "Think Different," was also a testament to that spirit. A simple, powerful, and inspiring message. What was the result? The colorful iMacs that saved Apple from bankruptcy. The iPod that changed the way we listen to music. The iPhone, a phone with just one physical home button. In its early iterations, that completely redefined the mobile industry. In particular, the iPhone 4 was a masterpiece of minimalist design, with its metal frame and dual glass surfaces. Simple, yet incredibly elegant and sophisticated. What's the lesson here, folks? It's the power of focus. In work, as in life, we are often tempted to take on too much. We want to please everyone, pursue every opportunity, and be present everywhere. But the result is often that we don't do anything well, and we end up exhausted. Learning to say no to projects that aren't truly important, to unproductive meetings, to requests that fall outside our capabilities and priorities, is an expression of a minimalist lifestyle at work. It helps us free up time and energy to concentrate on what truly creates value, what genuinely yields breakthrough results. Warren Buffett, the legendary investor, also has similar advice about focus. Make a list of your top 25 goals. Then, circle your top 5 goals, and then avoid the other 20 at all costs. Are you feeling overwhelmed at work? Try applying this principle from Steve Jobs. Identify what's core and have the courage to eliminate the clutter. The results might surprise you. We've talked about material minimalism and work minimalism. So what about a very important aspect of life? Our relationships. Can the philosophy of minimalism be applied here? The answer is yes. And once again, Steve Jobs offers us some interesting insights. Steve Jobs was known for his strong personality, which was so direct that he was sometimes considered harsh. Many were drawn to him because they admired his talent, but quite a few also left because they couldn't handle his personality. However, looking at it from another angle, Jobs' demanding nature reflected a deliberate choice in his relationships. Jobs said, "I like to associate with smart people because they don't have to consider their dignity." This might sound a bit cryptic, but it can be interpreted to mean that people who are truly intelligent and confident in their worth don't get overly concerned with face or false pride. They aren't easily offended by direct feedback. Instead, they are always focused on their personal growth, ready to listen and learn. They have an open mind. Steve Jobs, with his limited time and intense focus on work, seemed unwilling to waste time on superficial relationships, empty praise, or efforts to please everyone. He always believed that instead of wasting time on people who weren't on the same wavelength, who didn't contribute to growth, it was better to spend that time developing and creating great things with intelligent people, people who shared the same vision. Therefore, those who could work and survive under Jobs' high pressure, those who could endure his sometimes brutal honesty, not only became outstanding leaders in their fields, but many also became his close confidants, lifelong companions. These were quality relationships built on a foundation of respect for talent, honesty, and common goals. This gives us something to think about. In the adult world, relationships don't really need to be overly complicated. We often try to please others, try to change ourselves to fit in with a certain group, or conversely, try to change others to suit us. But is that really necessary, and does it bring happiness? There's a wonderful analogy mentioned. I eat apples with people who like apples. You eat bananas with people who like bananas. It doesn't matter. We don't necessarily have to try to change each other's preferences or force banana lovers to eat apples with us. A comfortable, healthy relationship is one where each person can be themselves and their differences are respected. As adults, we should live like that, each person just needing to satisfy their own preferences and values. We don't need to live to convince others, nor do we need others to convince us. When it comes to relationships, perhaps what we need is choice, rather than trying to change. Different personalities, different life views. So what? Why must we force everyone to be uniform, to be exactly the same? Anything that requires you to bow down to maintain a relationship, anything that demands you exhaust yourself just to fit in with someone or a group, these are all probably signals that it's not where you truly belong. The writer San Mao also shared some very poignant thoughts on this. I stay away from relationships that are unimportant, but also overly intense and close. That makes me feel heavy, burdened. I don't engage in much unnecessary gossip. That makes me feel peaceful. I love someone carefully because I don't want my feelings to be scattered. I don't need deeply complex relationships. I just hope for simplicity. And she concluded, the most comfortable relationship is definitely a simple relationship. Indeed, my friends, minimalism in relationships doesn't mean living in solitude. It means choosing authentic, quality connections with people who bring positive energy, understanding, and support. It's about bravely cutting off toxic relationships, interactions that leave you feeling drained and unlike yourself. Then, you'll have more space and time to nurture those who truly matter. Take a look at your own circle of relationships. Are there any that are draining more energy from you than they are bringing joy and growth? Perhaps a little minimalism is needed here. We've journeyed through material, work, and relationship minimalism. And now, let's reflect on minimalism in life as a whole, as an overarching philosophy. There's a famous Taiwanese cartoonist, Tsai Chi-chung, who dedicated his life to one principle: live the simplest life, do the most spiritual things. It's said that if he only ate one simple meal a day, even just a steamed bun with some soft tofu, he still felt it was delicious and fulfilling, because his joy didn't come from material luxury, but from the richness of his spiritual life and the works he created. This philosophy is hardly new. Thousands of years ago, the ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus founded a school of thought that maintained that the purpose of life was to achieve pleasure, ataraxia, peace of mind, and aponia, absence of bodily pain. But the pleasure Epicurus spoke of wasn't about wild revelry, all-night parties, or limitless material indulgence. He had very few possessions and ate only bread, olives, and drank water daily. Only on very special occasions would he have a little cheese. He once wrote, "When we say that pleasure is the end and aim, we do not mean the pleasures of the prodigal or the pleasures of sensuality. We mean the absence of pain in the body and of trouble in the soul. It is not by an unbroken succession of drinking bouts and of revelry, not by sexual lust, nor the enjoyment of fish and other delicacies of a luxurious table, which produce a pleasant life. It is sober reasoning, searching out the grounds of every choice and avoidance, and banishing those beliefs through which the greatest tumults take possession of the soul." A truly profound and thought-provoking definition of happiness, isn't it? Indeed, the true taste of life is the joy found in simple things. Real joy in life, sustainable happiness, always comes from letting go of burdens, reducing unnecessary complexities, and becoming simpler. Let's return to Steve Jobs. In his final years, when he was world famous, a billionaire known to everyone, his private life retained an astonishing simplicity. It's said that his house had no live-in bodyguards, no servants waiting on him. In fact, during the day, his doors were often unlocked. Imagine this in today's society, especially for someone of his stature. Meanwhile, perhaps many around him, who were also successful and wealthy, were constantly spending and flaunting their riches. But Jobs was different. He once said, and these words were recorded by Walter Isaacson in the Biography, "I saw a lot of people at Apple who made a lot of money and felt they had to live differently. Some of them bought balancing Rolls-Royces and various houses, each with a house manager and then someone to manage the house managers. Their wives got plastic surgery and turned into these bizarre people. This was not how I wanted to live. I'd promised myself I wouldn't let money ruin my life." A powerful and conscious vow. For Jobs, there were only three things that truly mattered most in his life: his career, his burning passion for Apple, music — he was an avid music lover, especially Bob Dylan — and family. And when the devastating pancreatic cancer struck, when he no longer had the strength to directly manage all of Apple's operations, when his career had to be put on hold, the most important things in his life were reduced to two: family and music. At that time, Apple employees, upon learning that his illness had worsened, were very concerned and proposed organizing a grand, formal farewell party to honor his contributions. But do you know what? Steve Jobs consistently refused. Instead of noisy parties, he chose to quietly return home to have a warm dinner with his wife, Lorraine Powell Jobs, and their children. Because, perhaps more than anyone, in those moments confronting the boundary between life and death, he realized that happiness is actually very simple. Happiness is having a warm home to return to, having loved ones waiting, and having a light always lit for you. These seemingly ordinary things are, in fact, the most precious. The writer Lin Yu Tang also penned some beautiful lines about happiness, which I believe will touch the hearts of many of us. So-called happiness is, firstly, sleeping in your own bed; secondly, eating food cooked by your parents; thirdly, hearing your beloved speak words of love and affection to you; and fourthly, playing with your children. One might think that these things, repeated day after day, would be boring, monotonous. But no, that is true happiness, a simple happiness that cannot be copied and cannot be bought with money. Do you see? The most precious things in life are often the simplest things, things that sometimes, in our pursuit of distant goals, we inadvertently forget. It's a family meal, a heartfelt conversation, a peaceful moment watching the sunset, or simply a good night's sleep. Throughout his life and career, Steve Jobs had a mantra, an unchanging principle that he always kept in mind and applied. He once shared, "My mantra has been focus and simplicity." He further explained, "Simple can be harder than complex. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple. But it's worth it in the end, because once you get there, you can move mountains." What a profoundly insightful statement. Simple can be harder than complex. It sounds paradoxical, doesn't it? We often think that making things complicated with many details and features is difficult and demonstrates intelligence. But no, according to Jobs, achieving true, refined simplicity is the real challenge. It requires a deep understanding of the essence of the problem, the ability to eliminate everything unnecessary, and the ability to retain only the core, the most essential part. Like a brilliant sculptor, it's not about adding, but about chipping away, removing the excess stone to reveal a perfect work of art. Our brains are the same. They need to work hard to eliminate cluttered thoughts, prejudices, and baseless fears, to achieve clarity and wisdom in thinking. And when you achieve that simplicity, when you can see through to the essence, when you focus all your energy on the core, then, just as Jobs said, you can move mountains. That is the power of focus and simplicity. That is how Apple changed the world. Our lives are the same. The simpler you live, the more you can enjoy the joys, the sweetness, and the simple beauties that life offers. When our minds are no longer burdened by too many unnecessary material desires, no longer chasing hollow ambitions of fame, no longer bound by toxic relationships, we will have more space, more time, and most importantly, more strength to deepen our own lives. We will have time to read a good book, to learn a new skill, to take care of our mental and physical health, to spend quality moments with loved ones, and to pursue our true passions. Isn't that a life worth dreaming of? Many readers, after finishing Steve Jobs' biography, exclaimed that they not only admired his technological genius, but were also captivated by the way he chose to live an intentional life, albeit sometimes full of contradictions. The lessons about minimalism, focus, and the relentless pursuit of excellence have truly inspired many people on their journey to find meaning in life. My dear friends at BookSmart Insights, so we've just journeyed together through a rather extensive exploration, uncovering profound insights into the minimalist lifestyle through the life of a legend, Steve Jobs. From simplifying what we own, how we work, the relationships we cultivate, to how we perceive and enjoy life each day. I hope that through today's sharing, you've had some aha moments of your own, some bright spots that helped you realize that happiness and success don't necessarily come from complexity or excess. Sometimes, the greatest strength lies in simplicity. Let go of unnecessary material desires. Let go of pursuits that don't truly bring lasting value. Let go of relationships that are no longer suitable, that don't bring positive energy. This isn't about giving up. It's about making intelligent choices to gain more space, time, and strength to deepen our own lives. The world out there may always be moving towards complexity and materialism. But we have every right to choose a peaceful oasis for ourselves, a purified way of life, so that our hearts and souls can be light. I hope that all of us, friends of BookSmart Insights, can, step by step, purify our lives and our hearts to become simple, happy, and free individuals in our own way, even in this seemingly increasingly complex world. Thank you for listening and for staying with me until these very last moments. If you found this video helpful and valuable, please don't hesitate to give it a like and share it with your friends, family, and anyone you think might also need these messages. And most importantly, which aspect of minimalism that we discussed resonated with you the most? Do you have a personal story about applying a minimalist lifestyle that you'd like to share? Please leave your comments below. I'd love to read them and learn from you. Finally, if you're new to BookSmart Insights or haven't hit that subscribe button yet, please do it now. Then remember to click the notification bell too, so you don't miss out on our upcoming videos sharing wisdom from great books. Once again, thank you all so much. I wish you a day filled with joy and peace, and I hope that you always find meaning in the simple things in your life. Goodbye for now, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.